Week 2 of the fantasy football season, and here's the top 15 tight ends I'm ranking this week. The first guy, Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. So I know Kelce, he didn't play in week 1 for this Kansas City Chiefs team, but if he plays in this game, we know he's the number 1 tight end in all pro football, in all fantasy football. He was a first round pick for a reason, and obviously you could see the Chiefs missed him in that week 1 loss versus the Detroit Lions. So right now they go to Jacksonville, a defense where I think he could work the middle of the field and make some plays. Here's Kelce, and definitely a tight end. I got it one this week, number 2, Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens. So Mark Andrews, he missed week 1 as well with the injury, but I think he'll be back in week 2 for a big division ball game at the Cincinnati Bengals. And we know Lamar Jackson, he had an off game as well, but if you get Mark Andrews back in the lineup, that's another big weapon to go with Zay Flowers, who emerged in his first career NFL game in the regular season. So right here, Mark Andrews, he's a matchup problem. He gets open in the middle of the field, and I don't think the Bengals are going to have an answer for him where he's had good career numbers for Cincinnati. So I have him as 2 as long as he plays in this game as well. Number 3, Darren Waller of the New York Giants. Darren Waller, he was the only bright spot pretty much for the New York Giants in that 40-0 blowout loss versus the Dallas Cowboys in week 1. But Waller did end up with 6.60 fantasy points. I know that's not a lot, but compared to what everyone else did on that Giant team, he was the leading receiver in fantasy points on that team. So right here in week 2, they got a good matchup with the Arizona Cardinals. They really can't stop anyone on defense. Indoor game, they don't have to worry about the weather and rain or whatever the case may be. And I think Waller and Jones have a good rapport going into this ball game. And he's going to be the number 1 target in the passing game, I believe. So this week here, I have Waller maybe a little high, but I got him at 3. Number 4, TJ Hawkinson of the Minnesota Vikings. So Hawkinson, he hasn't missed a beat after he pretty much sat out all training camp until he got a new contract. And he had 8 catches for 35 yards in week 1. And right now here in week 2, this is a ball game versus at the Philadelphia Eagles. That this Viking team, they're going to have to put up points on the board, obviously. 17 points last week wasn't enough versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a tough home opener loss. So TJ Hawkinson, he's a nightmare problem. He's a big target. And like I said, Kirk Cousins, he gets him the ball in all the right spots here. And even with a tough matchup on paper at Philadelphia, I think Hawkinson has another good week. And I got him at 4. Number 5, George Kittle of the San Francisco 49ers. So Kittle, he has a great career versus the Los Angeles Rams. And right now, they go to the Los Angeles Rams here in week 2. Is this San Francisco 49er team. And Brock Purdy and Kittle, especially in the red zone, he just finds them. And Brock Purdy's been a good quarterback for this Niner team. That's why they let Garoppolo walk in free agency and traded Trey Lance to the Cowboys in the offseason. And right now, George Kittle, as long as he's healthy, he's a top 5 tight end pretty much week in and week out for fantasy owners. And this week where he's going to have a matchup advantage here at the Rams, I think he has a good ball game once again. And I got him at 5. Number 6, Evan Ingram of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Evan Ingram, last week, another good ball game. Last season was his breakout year with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They got him on the franchise tag. And this week, I think he could work the middle of the field and have a decent ball game versus the Kansas City Chiefs, because a lot of coverage is obviously going to be rolled to Calvin Ridley in that ball game. After in his debut with the Jacksonville Jaguars, he had 101 yards and a touchdown in that one. So Evan Ingram picked up where he left off last season, like I said. And this one here versus the Chiefs, who just gave Sam LaPorta, the rookie, 8.90 fantasy points in his debut. I think Ingram could have a ball game like that, or even better. Number 7, Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles. So Dallas Goedert, he definitely was a big disappointment in week 1 with only 1 target and no catches in the goose egg in that one for fantasy owners. But I think here in week 2, he's going to find the middle of that defense in the Minnesota Vikings. And it was a weird week 1 ball game, obviously, with bad weather over there in New England, with a lot of rain, slippery ball, and tough to run routes. So right now, Minnesota coming to town. Hopefully the weather's good over here in Philly on Thursday Night Football. And we know Dallas Goedert's one of the most talented tight ends in the league in terms of catching the football and yards after catch. So I think after that 1 goose egg, he bounces back in a big way in this one and has a good game. Number 8, Pat Freiermuth of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Pat Freiermuth, he got banged up in the week 1 ball game versus the 49ers, but did find the end zone in that one. Obviously, a tight end is a young quarterback's best friend and security blanket. And right now, I think in this one versus the Cleveland Browns, he could take advantage of that defense a little bit here, is Pat Freiermuth, and work the middle of the field. Now with Deontay Johnson out multiple weeks with a hamstring injury, someone's going to have to step up in some targets will be distributed around. Obviously, Allen Robinson's the next man up over there at the receiving position. But Pat Freiermuth, like I said, he could get open middle of the field. Not the quickest of guys, but he knows how to find the seams and stuff. So if he plays in this ball game, he's number 8. Number 9, Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons. So Kyle Pitts, he didn't do much last week, obviously, but that's more of Desmond Ridder than anything. Where this Falcon team, they just like to pound the rock a whole lot, and it worked for them last week, and they got the victory, obviously, versus the Carolina Panthers. But in this ball game versus the Green Bay Packers, they're going to have to put points on the board and throw the football a lot. So I know Ridder, he doesn't look good at all. It'll be better if Taylor Heineke came in my opinion, because at least he's a gunslinger and can get the ball to some of his playmakers. So last week we saw Pitts with a nice grab, and he only had 45 yards on 2 catches last week. But this week I think he could bounce back. They're going to have to throw the ball more versus Packer offense. And I got him in 9, number 10, Tyler Higbee of Los Angeles Rams. So Tyler Higbee, he's a nice tight end over the last couple seasons. I know he's had some good games and some games where he doesn't show up, but that's pretty much the landscape of the tight end position throughout the years, besides the Kelce and Andrews, Hawkinson and Waller and Kittle for the most part. So anyway, Higbee, he's one of the main targets in this offense with Cooper Kupp out, even though we saw Njoku have a monster ball game, catching 10 passes, over 100 yards in that one in week 1. But this could be a game where they're going to have to pass a lot once again versus a tough 49er defense. So Higbee, on just targets and volume alone, could be a top 10 option this week. Number 11, Sam LaPorta of the Detroit Lions. So LaPorta pretty much that second or third option in the passing game here for this Lion team. Obviously with Jameson Williams out 5 more weeks after the suspension. So LaPorta, he's an impressive rookie coming out of college. Week 1, he had a pretty decent ball game with 8.90 fantasy points in PPR leagues, and he was 3rd on the team, obviously in points, where behind Josh Reynolds and Amon-Ra St. Brown, who had 19 fantasy points. So LaPorta, I think, could work the middle of the field. This is an indoor game, which is always a plus, obviously, on the fast track. And the Seattle Seahawks team, they really can't stop anyone. We saw it in week 1 with Stafford and a bunch of backups moving the ball up and down the whole field. So I think LaPorta here could have a top 12 performance. And I got him at 11 this week. Number 12, Dalton Kincaid, another rookie tight end of the Buffalo Bills. So Dalton Kincaid, he made a few plays in week 1. But this Bill offense, they looked out of sync in that ball game versus the New York Jets. He was pretty much trying to force feed a few guys, obviously. Here was Josh Allen, and it wasn't working out, turning the ball over 4 times in that game. But Kincaid definitely could be a matchup problem. He was a first-round pick for a reason in the NFL draft, and we saw some good plays out of him in that ball game versus the New York Jets, but not enough targets. And Dawson Knox ate into that as well, where they ran a lot of 2 tight end sets. Obviously, it was this Buffalo Bill team, but I still think Kincaid could have a decent ball game, and I got him at 12. 13, Hunter Henry of the New England Patriots. So Hunter Henry, he had a breakout ball game, 5 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown. And once again, I think he got a decent ball game here versus the Miami Dolphins in week 2 on Sunday Night Football, where this New England Patriot team, they're going to have to obviously put up points in this one after we saw the Dolphins explode for 37 points in week 1 at the Los Angeles Chargers. So right here, Hunter Henry and Mac Jones, we know they had a good rapport over the last couple seasons since Jones came into the league. And Hunter Henry, we know he was good with the Chargers many years ago, and we've seen some pop games on and off for him with this New England Patriot team. So right now with Juju Smith-Schuster not doing much in this offense, and Mac Jones more comfortable with Kendrick Bourne and Hunter Henry, I think Henry could be a decent tight end this week. I'm not going to bump him all the way up within the top 10, but right now with 13, I think is a decent number with a guy that could go up from here. So right now, I got him at 13. Number 14, David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns. So I'm not big on David Njoku, and I've said this many times throughout the last year here, talking about David Njoku and the tight end position. So Njoku last week, we didn't see much out of him. Once Deshaun Watson returned into the lineup last season, the numbers definitely went down here for David Njoku. And this week here, it's a pretty tough matchup at the Pittsburgh Steelers, where even George Kittle didn't have the greatest of ball games. And this Steelers defense, they're one of the better defenses in the league. So I know it's a Monday Night Football game. I think it's going to be a defensive matchup and a defensive battle between these two teams. And I just can't trust David Njoku, especially, like I said, with Watson. We haven't seen much out of him. And the final tight end I'm ranking this week in the top 15 is Cole Kmet of the Chicago Bears. So Cole Kmet, him and Justin Fields, they have a pretty decent chemistry over the last couple seasons here, and he's a security blanket as well as Kmet for the young quarterback Justin Fields. We didn't see much out of DJ Moore in week 1. Darnell Mooney, I know, scored the touchdown, but besides that, Cole Kmet was the second guy on that team here in catching the football and putting up fantasy points. So right now with the Tampa Bay Buck team that obviously has a pretty good defense and did win in week 1, I think Cole Kmet could work the middle of the field. We saw Hawkinson have 8 catches in that ball game. So I think Kmet can get anywhere from 3 to 5 grabs in this ball game, 35, 40 yards. And I think he'll put in a decent ball game in the top 15. So that's the top 15 tight ends I'm ranking for week 2 of the fantasy football season.